Hello and welcome. I'm Chris Palmore, and this is Grad Space Radio, and this is Gratitude and Sobriety. I've got my friend and co-host Curtis in Florida, and I'm going to pop him on right now. Hey, Curtis, how you doing, man?
Good. Good morning.
Glad we could be here. Glad we could do it. Feels like it's been too long.
It has. It's good to be here. It's cool to be doing it in mid morning rather than at night too.
I agree, and before I bring on my good friend Bobby Kountz, I just wanted to say, in the same vein, that whole in the morning, I think this is a perfect way to start the day, and it also reminded me of years back when I heard about a gratitude meeting, right, and it was an AA meeting, and I went to it, and I was just overcome with people being in the morning, right, people in the morning in a gathering sharing what they're grateful for, and I think it's awesome that we're meeting this morning, the three of us, to talk gratitude, and appreciation. So it's a perfect way to start the day. And it's something I love so much. So in that same vein, I want to bring on my friend Bobby Kountz in Las Vegas. Hey, Bobby.
Good morning. Good morning.
What's up, Bobby?
Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm happy you could be here. Curtis usually brings the guests in, but I said, Bobby's he's been sober over 30 years now. And, you're my friend and my mentor. I was like, what better way to introduce you, my good friend Curtis, than to just to get on and do a jam session.
Well, let me first say that, and appropriately so, I'm grateful for the opportunity, right? I mean, I know that's probably a little bit silly with what we're doing here, but at the same time, I honestly believe that if you begin and end your day with gratitude, you're literally setting yourself up for success. And it's because of gratitude, I truly believe, in my life, being grateful for so many things, that's allowed me to be able to live each and every one of the days that I've lived sober one day at a time. I consider myself to be the one day at a time guy. And for anybody that's watching this, that's probably not a big surprise, because it's one of the major foundational principles of staying sober. I don't have to think about being sober tomorrow. If I wasn't yesterday, I might have to think about that. So if it was in my past, but I don't have to worry about tomorrow's kept for me. Tomorrow's kept for us, right? We only get to live in this present moment. This is it. This is all there is, right here, right now, with you and Curtis, this and the audience. This is all there is. There isn't anything beyond this. And for someone I probably should let you ask me questions instead of me talking. I have a tendency to just roll. So maybe I'll pause there. All I was going to say is that if anyone's struggling right now, if you're thinking, oh my God, I don't even know how I'm going to get through this day. How can I do this? Just realize you don't have to get through the day. You just have to get through the next minute. And then you add another minute. And then you add another minute. And then the minutes accumulate. And before you know it, an hour's passed. And then it's not quite as bad as it was an hour ago. And then that hour leads to the next hour. But you're in each of those minutes, moment by moment, sometimes. And then as you begin to feel a little bit better, or something triggers you, like the sound of a bird chirping that you haven't heard in, 5 years, because you've been so fogged out of your mind that you didn't even realize the birds were chirping anymore. In that moment of gratitude, all of a sudden something's different. Or if it wasn't that, it was, oh my God, I woke up early this morning and I saw the sunrise. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine the magic in a sunrise? Those little moments are the moments that carry us through the day. And I'll be quiet now.
I love that. And, a great way to start. And I'll ask Curtis here, in this moment, what are 3 things you're grateful for?
My kids, travel, and shelter.
Very good. Bobby, what about you, man?
I'm grateful for this t-shirt right here.
All right.
Breathe and reflect. And the reason I'm grateful for it is because it reminds me that at any moment throughout the day, I have that available to me as a skill. I'm grateful for the water bottle that's right next to me. And next to that water bottle is my coffee. And I'm really grateful for my coffee.
I love that. Go ahead, Curtis.
It's funny that you mention like the birds chirping being triggering, or you know, appreciating the sunrise, because like if you're up fucking blowing coke all night and the birds start chirping, it's like, oh God, it's like that moment that you're like, all right, am I gonna like push through this day and just like keep getting high, or is it like really time to like settle down and try to sleep? And for me, it was always like, all right, we gotta like, it's time to eat some acid so we can like really get past this, like coming off this coke or whatever. And it was always this weird cycle where it would be like up all night, like blowing coke and doing all this shit, and then it's like eat some pills to go to sleep and start drinking again. Then it's like, oh, as soon as you eat some more pills and start drinking again, it seems like a better idea to start doing more and more drugs. So it just leads into the next day. And the sunrise is the same way, but the sunrise is you know, it's definitely a sight to behold. And I'm so like, when I do hear the birds chirping and I do think about like laying in bed with my heart pounding out of my chest, thinking I'm gonna fucking die from doing too much blow or speed or whatever, I'm just like really grateful in that moment that I'm sober at this point, and I don't have those mornings where the birds chirping is like a terrifying event like it was, because it was truly terrifying. Yeah, I was just, I'm really grateful for that. And I'm just, man, things have changed since those days. And it's really, it's with benzos like Valium and Xanax, Klonopin, and all that being such a big part of my story, it's really hard to remember a lot of it. So when I do get to remember the consequences of my actions, which is important in the recovery, living a life of recovery, to keep the consequences like close, because like that's how we drift away. That's how you know, we forget how bad things were, and we have this euphoric recall, which is essentially remembering the first time we got high or the first time we got drunk and how great it was, and like all of the really hard times kind of like are gone as a defense mechanism. But you know, it's good to be reminded. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, Chris, back to you.
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm so grateful to connect friends. So you know, being able to sit with the two of you is a real treat. So you know, I was telling Curtis earlier, I still have not met Bobby in the human form. I did get to meet Curtis in Florida last month, so that was really special. But here we are, the three of us in this room together, living in a modern time. That's, you know, so I'm very grateful for modern technology. The fact that the three of us can sit here together, and this is a gratitude meeting. Where technically this is a morning gratitude meeting. So I love how Bobby brought up the birds, the sun, and how Curtis gave the reflection of when you're in a bad place, these things really suck. But when you're in a good place, you can actually look at them and appreciate them. I love that. No, I love that.
Listen,
yeah.
I think that's so important, because, you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I'm not here to tell anybody that. As a matter of fact, the early days of sobriety for me were brutal. They were miserable. And I failed over and over and over again until I got to a point. And I think everybody that's put any amount of time together in sobriety has gone through this experience. Very rarely do I speak to someone who just says, you know what, one day I just decided I didn't want to do this anymore and I was done. So I don't want to give anybody a misperception either about my life. And when I finally did make my decision to stop, my decision to stop came after a whole bunch of failure. And we in society have a tendency to fear failure for some unknown reason. And what we need to understand is that we build on our failures. For success to happen, we have to embrace failure. We can't be ashamed of our failure either. So let's say that you started down the path and you said, you know what, that's it. I'm done this year. I'm going to get clean and sober. That's it. I'm finished. And 6 months along the way, 6 days along the way, 6 hours along the way, something happens, triggers you, you fail. That's not the problem. The problem is when you fail and you don't log into your memory why you failed. So there's going to be a triggering event that's going to cause you to pick up again. And you have to be cognizant of whatever that triggering event was. And then that gives you one more tool in the arsenal of tools that we use to stay clean and sober, right? And it's that memory recall that you kind of talked about, Curtis, where we have a tendency to remember the good stuff and we push away the bad stuff because we don't want to acknowledge that. So you have to ground yourself in that moment. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. When I finally decided to get clean and sober for real, like when I made the commitment, and I really think there's something here for the listeners or anybody that's in, that follows you about this commitment piece. This commitment piece is really, really big, in my opinion, for me. We each have to do this. This is an individual journey for every single individual that's going to go through this. Now, can we take bits and pieces from other people and create a successful plan for ourselves? I absolutely believe we can. And as we talk about my sobriety journey a little bit more, if we do, I can actually tell you about how I used a little bit of everything to create my path. And here's what I personally believe. I personally believe that once you make a decision that you're going to get clean and sober and that you're going to stay clean and sober, and that's more important to you than anything else, there's a trigger. Something happens in our mind and it sets us up to a place where we have to then make a conscious decision to pick up again. In other words, we've framed it in our brain so that our brain, now listen, if you're not clean and sober for enough time to actually frame that, then that's probably not going to happen. So this isn't for somebody that's in their first couple of days of sobriety. This is someone who's made a commitment to it. Maybe you've gone through a rehab program, a formal structured program where you worked on everything that you needed to work on that's below the surface, which is what's probably causing us to drink and drug anyway, right? There's something under the surface that's actually causing us to do what we're doing. You've learned about those things. You've journaled about it. You've thought about it. You've processed it. You're working the steps wherever you are in the program and your path. But you have the ability to create a visual image in your mind that's more powerful than the very best image you ever had when you were out there doing what you're doing, having fun, right? So for me, the way to do that was to drive to the other side of town where the lonely people go, where the forgotten people go, where the shelters are, and to find and this was selfish on my part, I'm going to be totally honest with you, to find the worst possible case scenario that you can as you drive around. So I found a guy whose cart was on the curb. He was laying in the gutter. He was covered in filth, shit and piss. He was completely disheveled. And I stopped the car and I let that image burn into my mind. I mean, I let it burn into my mind. And I said to myself, I said, Bobby, if you continue on the path you're on, in less than a year's time, that's going to be you. And I let that sink in. I let it burn in. And it was a selfish moment. There was a part of me that said, you should get out and try to help this guy. And I thought to myself, no, you can't help anybody that's not ready to help themselves. And when he's ready for help, he'll go seek help, and then he might be ready to receive that help. And then I did the next thing. I reached out to my sister, who was the only person I could think of that might take me back in. And I said, hey, look, I think I'm ready to really deal with this thing. She said, well, there's going to be some rules. And I'm like, okay. I was kind of desperate. She said, it's up to my husband. He has to be willing as well. So they made space for me in their home. And then I got into AA, NA, the VA, and, church worked for me as well. There was a church right down the street called Grapevine Fellowship. And it was a progressive Christian, zero judgment kind of a place where I could go and I could discuss how I saw my higher power. And it was the combination of all of those things that allowed me to at least establish a foothold that I could build on. And then it's been a day by day process ever since that first day. Curtis, I would love to know, because I don't know your story, and maybe people that are tuning in for the first time don't know your story. What did you do to burn in that, that image that, what, this is it for me. I'm never going back.
Well, there is a specific event, and it was done for me because I was incapable of it. But when I was in treatment, it was 19 or 20 days into treatment when, at that point you're supposed to be starting to be stabilized. I had a really, really long and difficult detox due to like a 20-year benzo habit and a 30-pack of beer and a fifth of whiskey a day, and the DTs from that, the withdrawals from the benzo kick was gnarly, and it's really dangerous. That and alcohol withdrawals are the only two that you can actually die from.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I was, I went through detox, and they let me, like, I was in detox for like 48 days essentially. But where I'm going with this is, like 19 or 20 days into treatment, I had what they called secondary withdrawals, and I went into full-blown drug-induced psychosis, and meaning, for people that are listening that don't know what that is, if you see someone wandering the streets talking to themselves, or are in their own world, that's what happened to me about, I think it was 19 days in. And they took me to the ICU, and I was in critical condition for 3 days. They did not think that I was going to come back from that at all. I think they had prepared my parents for it. So I wake up in the hospital in restraints, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Was I in a rep? Because I didn't remember being in treatment. I do remember, like, it comes back to me gradually. Like, I remember telling my counselor in treatment, I was like, I think I've had this spiritual awakening. I can control the clouds with my mind. And he's like, what? So yeah, it was, so it was really at that point, I was who is now my boss, with Intervention 180, the company I work for. He was my sober coach and case manager and interventionist and sober companion at the time. And they called him, and they were like, let me back up. I wake up in restraints in treatment, or in the hospital, and think that I've been in a car accident, because I didn't remember that I've been in treatment for 3 weeks. And I gradually came back from it and regained my wits, for lack of a better term, after they were certain that I was, like, going to be essentially schizophrenic for the rest of my life. So it's really a miracle how, like, our bodies and minds can heal, and it's unbelievable. But the doctor at the treatment center called Tom in and had this conversation, and Tom tells this story better than I do, but he was like, you have to let Curtis know that although relapse is a part of a lot of people's story, and it happens all the time, you have to stress the importance of the fact that he cannot relapse. It cannot be a part of his story. Like, I wouldn't say that to many people, because people relapse and they come back, and people relapse and they come back, but he will not make it back from a relapse. And I'm certain of that. And he worked with drug addicts for 20 years at that point. And, that is what comes back to me. Like, I don't want to be, I want to be of sound body and mind.
Yep.
And I know that if I relapse, best case scenario is I'm schizophrenic for the rest of my entire life. Worst case scenario is I die. There is no other, like, it's not like, oh, I relapse and then like, let me go out for 3 months and then go back to treatment. That's just not part of what my brain at this point can handle, from what I've been told from a neurological standpoint and just from a sobriety standpoint. So that's what I go back to. And, you know, I want to continue to be able to show up as a sober father for my children. And I have all this like amazing shit happening in my life. And why, you know, but the thing about the disease is that doesn't necessarily stop anyone.
That's it.
And
nailed it. You nailed it right there, brother. You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. There are people who have everything, literally everything, bro. Like you just talked about, they have everything. They get their life right and they still have everything. And the disease pulls them back down slowly. It grabs a hold of them. Now, I realize that this is actually a gratitude discussion, but it was really important, I think, to ground us in just how insidious this disease is. And you just described so incredibly well in that short little phrase right there, Curtis. You can have everything going on. It can all be so-called perfect, right? We know that really doesn't exist. We know perfect doesn't exist. That's illusory, but it looks perfect from the outside, right? I try to put my hands just right. If you're taking a picture, if you put it in the picture, right? It's hard to do that on a camera because everything's backwards. Wow, that's a trip. Anyway, I geek out on little things like that every now and again. That's the beauty of having clarity in your brain, right? You can actually think about stuff. The beauty of what you just shared, you talked about your kids. So here's where the piece comes. In my opinion, there is a conscious decision that comes along with, once you finally do get your faculties about you, picking up again, right? So every day, and I don't know for sure, but I think I know you well enough by now already in these few minutes, you make a conscious decision in your mind in the very first few minutes of waking up that today, just today, you're going to stay clean and sober. Today. You're not worried about tomorrow, right? But for today, you make a commitment to yourself. Today, I'm going to stay clean and sober. And if I get to a point in the day where it's too hard, then I'm going to stay sober for this moment. And I'd love you to share about that because that is part of the gratitude picture. I'm grateful for the moment. I'm grateful for the day.
Yeah, you are correct. My practice is to, you know, invite my higher power into my life as soon as I wake up, invite the universe into my life, because that way I'm literally putting my higher power first.
Yep.
And I feel really, this woman said this in a meeting I was in recently, and she's talking about being divinely held. And I thought that was like the most beautiful thing I'd ever fucking heard in my life.
Yeah, exactly. You think I get a vision just from you saying that, my hand's out in front of me, right? Like and being divinely held. And then the arms just wrapping around me and saying, you know what? We got this, right? We got this. Not you got this, not I got this. We got this. So if we'll turn that over and allow something bigger than us that we certainly could never completely understand to help guide our path, then we don't have to do it alone anymore, right?
Yeah, and it's such a relief. It's such a like way to relieve anxiety and to like add some ease to your day, that it's like, okay, you don't have to I don't have to do all of this on my own. Like, just be open and, you know, let the ebbs and flows of the universe kind of like take care of you. And as long as I'm like being of service and doing the next right thing and staying dialed in and reaching out to other people and doing the things that I know work, like right. It's really, you know, we don't have to fight so hard if we just kind of let it roll. And that's, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out, you know, and we have the peace of mind in knowing that if it doesn't work out, that like, okay, just go with that. And the more I resist and the more I try to control things, the more I obsess about it. And then it's just, it makes my day increasingly harder. But the literature that I read in the morning is like really instructive as far as like, just kind of like let the universe take care of you and like do the next right thing. And it seems to work out because it's all energy. Everything is energy.
Everything is energy. Yeah.
That's energy. The way money comes in and out of my life is energy. The way people come in and out of my life is energy. You know, and it's really a relief to know that I don't have to navigate every day on my own. And that same concept brings the right people into my life to like help me. And I ask for help a lot. And I also try to avail myself to people for help. So. Yeah.
So you said that concept. I mean, I want to think about that for a minute. That concept, we want to make sure that that's crystal clear for your audience to understand. So, in your opinion, what is that concept? Is it a concept of a service mindset, of a servant mindset, or is it I'm going to get out of my head and think about other people? I'm going to allow others to help me. Is it all of that? Does it start with just for today?
It's always the mantra that I learned from one of my mentor's best friends, a guy in LA, is just always be of service. And it's really simple. And it's like, if you're being of service, if I'm being of service, I'm out of my head. And I'm also, filling up my karmic tank, for lack of a better term there. And it just feels good. And it's like, I feel like selfishly, if I can move through life, like as a servant and helping other people and opening myself up to that, I feel like, I will continue to be divinely held.
Yeah. There's a guy who runs an incredibly successful business. It's a, coaching and consulting company. He's written a book. When you get some years of sobriety under you and you start to feel like a normal human being again, whatever that is. I'm still not sure what that is exactly, but you know what I'm saying? When you're not like so far out there that you really don't have any idea who you are, you haven't done any internal work to know who you are as a human being and how you want to show up in the world. As we begin to read more and more and we expand our mind beyond just sobriety stuff, right? Beyond just the 12 steps and 12 traditions, or, any spiritual work that you're doing, whatever that may be. Maybe you're into writing and you're doing like the 12 steps of writing, whatever it is, whatever your thing is. There's so many other tools and resources available to us, but we're not ready for them till we're ready for them. Anyway, this guy, Rory Vaden, who made a commitment to become like the world champion public speaker and Toastmasters at one point in time, wrote a book called Take the Stairs. And in that book, he talks about a servant selling mindset. And he said, I try to remind everybody on a regular basis when they go out to sell our products or to help other people, because we reframe it so that they really understand that they're not really selling anything. They're providing a service to someone. He said, to get the jitters and the nerves to go away, he said, I remind them that it's hard to be nervous when your heart is on service. And I just absolutely love that, because, if you're coming from an authentic place, if you're truly coming from a place of service and you don't have some kind of selfish motive in mind, then it really is all about service. And why would I be nervous about trying to help another human being? It just takes all the nerves out of it. So for me, that's been really big. And then the other thing he talks about is this thing that he calls the rent axiom. And it's that success is never guaranteed, right? We basically rent it, and the rent is due every day. So as it relates to sobriety, I think that's a really and I kind of butchered that a little bit. I paraphrased it. I mean, I could read the exact quote to you, but you get the idea, right? So success isn't guaranteed. It's only rented, and the rent is due every day. So sobriety is never guaranteed. It's only rented, and the rent is due every day. Do you see what I did with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's spiritual maintenance.
It is spiritual maintenance. Exactly. As is gratitude, which is what we came here to talk about, kind of, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to go ahead, Curtis.
You go.
No, I just want to interject and say, I'm loving hearing you guys talk back and forth, but I just want to interject. I think of, myself, I want to be a catalyst for gratitude. And we've talked about what what are things, what are the things you can do to be a catalyst for gratitude? And service is massive. It's a massive catalyst for gratitude. Showing up for somebody, listening to somebody, being present, right? Massive. And, giving service, again, the beauty of that is like you stop thinking of yourself. So you step out of self, you become present for somebody else, and then you're there, right? And there's so much gratitude is in the now. It's in appreciate what's going on now. It's not in tomorrow the sun's going to shine and I'll be grateful. It's in appreciating whatever the now is. So service is like a direct line to being a catalyst for gratitude, bringing you into the moment, and bam, there you are, not worrying about your problems, but being present for somebody else. And it's freaking beautiful. It's one of the things I love about both you guys. Both you guys are total servants' hearts, so present. And that's my interjection. I just want to say thank you. Okay.
So Curtis,
there's a line from.
Go ahead, Curtis. I'm sorry. So sometimes there's that little delay, so I didn't want to step on you there. So please step in.
There's a line from a Fish song that we were discussing in a really good friend of mine's. He's doing a new support group, and the song is called "Everything's Right," and the chorus is "Everything's right, so just hold tight." But there's a line in it that says "Happiness is how, rooted in the now," and it's like the whole thing. So the guitarist for Fish, who is my favorite musician in the history of musicians, Trey, he's been sober for a while. He's public about it, so I don't feel like I'm breaking his anonymity. He's very public about it. But yeah, it's been interesting to see the elements of spirituality and presence and gratitude, and how their writing has shifted as a band, and how his writing has shifted as a songwriter and a musician. And it's just like, as we get more sober, I've noticed, and I noticed this early on, God willing, I'll have 6 years in March. But
dude, we should have a podcast on that day, brother.
Yeah, there
people
go.
In, have people show up, and
I would come back for that. It's just a micro guest.
Anyways, go.
Rotation. You have a rotation.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Sobriety. And if we don't do it on that exact day, Chris,
we could do it that week.
We can maybe do a gratitude bomb thing for.
I know. Don't say anything to him. I don't want Curtis to hear about it. Okay.
We don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
Go ahead, buddy.
Sweet.
What is it? March what? What day is it? March what?
The 22nd.
Okay. All right.
But what I was saying is, it's for me, music is such a huge part of my life, and songs take on new meanings as we grow, as we mature, as we evolve, as we have these new experiences in life, and lyrics that meant one thing to us at one point in our life now mean an entirely different thing, and it's really cool, and it's one of my favorite things. It's always I listen to music all day long, every day. It's my passion is discovering new bands and sharing that music with people, or people are always sharing music with me. And talk about gratitude, man. I'm just it's such a listening to music for me throughout the day is such a powerful experience, and really guides me through my day. And I really enjoy in the mornings. I usually wake up as the sun's coming up, or sometimes before, but I'll do my morning routine, meditation, whatever, and then I put headphones on, and then just kind of close my eyes and listen to really soothing tunes that really tug at my heartstrings or whatever, and it just really sets me off in the perfect direction for the day. But yeah, Fish's music and Trey's writing has really reflected his spiritual path, and it's just cool it's awesome to experience those moments when you're oh, that's what he's talking about. Oh, I can relate to that because I felt that way, and it's really cool. I'm on a tangent now, so you guys can talk.
So Curtis, what I really loved about what you shared just now is it demonstrates that we can actually find what feeds our soul, because each of us are just a little bit different. You expressed so clearly just now, and anyone listening doesn't have to wonder what kind of an impact music has on your life because of the way you described the experience. I know, because I know Chris pretty well, that gratitude does that for him. multiple forms of gratitude. So he could be watching a video, he could be watching a movie, he could be listening to a conversation, and he's picking up on the moments of gratitude in whatever's happening because that feeds his soul. I love to read and I love to write, and I write pretty much probably every day, at least something. I'm certainly journaling something. Oftentimes I'm writing a specific article to get a point across, or I wrote a sobriety poem that that's in my book that talks about the sobriety journey, and it talks about basically my commits pathway to progress which is what has allowed me to maintain long-term sobriety. So sobriety in the early years for everybody is going to be an individual journey, but it's going to be much more structured, or in my opinion, probably should be much more structured as well. In my opinion, if you don't need that, then you don't necessarily have to do that. But if we look statistically at the people that do well, most of the people that do really well do well with structure. And most of those people probably haven't had much structure leading up to the time that they finally get some, right? So you maintain that structure, become more and more flexible with the structure, and start allowing other things to come in. And then you get your fulfillment from those other things. But the fulfillment starts from the inside. So when you're already happy on the inside and you're not seeking happiness externally, all of a sudden you stop seeking. What I heard when you described what music does for you is that music fills you up. So you're already full on the inside. And when you're full on the inside, it's like a cup. When the cup is full, is there room for anything else? And some people would say, no, if you pour more stuff into it, it's going to leak out and it's going to go all over the counter. Well, that's kind of true. But the truth is that when your cup is full, if you'll pour some out, and that's what we do as human beings. We pour out and then we pour into others. And when we pour into others, then that gives us room for more. What we're doing right now together with the three of us here is we're pouring out a little bit and making room for more. And the more we pour out, the more room we make. So when you describe what music does for you, I felt that. There's a difference between hearing it and feeling it. You were so visceral in your description. You actually talked about how you've heard lyrics change. You shared the experience of a friend. You listened to music all day long. I heard all of those things. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that music is a really, really big part of your life. When we have something like that, we can anchor ourselves in. We can also come back to that in the moments of difficulty, right? So,
Totally.
yeah. Yeah. And that's a beautiful, and gratitude works that same way, because as Chris talked about, gratitude happens in the moment. In this moment right now, I'm so grateful for the technology. I mean, I've got me in the bottom here. I've got Chris up in the right-hand corner for me. Curtis, you're over here in the left-hand corner. We're having this incredible conversation, and this would never be happening without this technology. So I can be grateful for the technology, and then I can get behind that. Chris, you're going to appreciate this. There's a book out there about a cup of coffee. Who knew you could write a book about a cup of coffee and thank 1,000 people? Probably
He stopped at 1,000 people. Yeah.
stopped at 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Who knew you could use gratitude as a tool to express how you feel? It's a powerful tool to express how you feel. I can look at you right now, and Chris, and I could just say, dude, I got to tell you, this has been such a rewarding experience already. I don't know how I could ever repay you for this, right? Because I am growing in the moment because of this conversation. I will never be the same human being again because my mind has gone to another place because of this conversation. And we're only like 3/4 of the way through it, right?
Mhm.
That's the power of gratitude. That's the magic of gratitude. I recently had an opportunity to go to the bottom of a canyon and look back up and go, this is perfect. Everything around me right now is perfect. And it was made by the hand of whatever you believe in. It was carved out over thousands of years of time, and it was Bryce Canyon National Park. And sitting at the bottom, looking at all the hoodoos and all the stuff that was going on around me, trees and nature, the sounds of the birds, I thought, man, life is really beautiful. And in that exact moment, I was so grateful for the moment. And we have moments throughout our days like that that we can actually look at and express gratitude for that moment. And in that moment, so I did recall just now to something that happened a couple of weeks ago. And I could ask myself a question if I'm struggling. Do I want to be able to experience more moments like this? Or do I want to wake up going, where am I? How did I get here? And who the hell is that next to me? And I don't want any more of those moments in my life. I got to be honest with you. So it makes it much easier for me to make a conscious decision about how I'm going to go through this day.
I want to speak to that moments thing. Yesterday. So again, is a quote in my book by a friend. It's basically said, busyness is the enemy of gratitude. So when you're running around, you're not being present. When you're rushing to one place to another, you're not enjoying the ride. So you're saying when you went to Bryce Canyon, you look up, you were literally like, I'm here enjoying this moment. Like you're literally like, you didn't just walk through the canyon and go, I went to a canyon. But you say, for example, yesterday, I'm on a walk with Rosie. It's a beautiful day. We've been waiting. The weather's been crap, but now the sun came out. It was 50s. We walked across the bridge. It was gorgeous. Walked around downtown Jeffersonville, went down to the water, and we were sitting there just watching these ducks, right? And these geese in the water. And there was we started to notice these little ducks, like they would go down for food. So it's like you'd shoot his legs up in the air and go like this, and at the same time, like the tail was doing this, and it was just the most cutest, the funniest thing, right? It was just comical. And I was thinking, I could have just think about being in the moment, right? I could have walked by and just said, "Oh, there's some ducks over there," but I wasn't in a hurry, thank goodness. We weren't on a timetable, so it isn't like we had to get somewhere, and we got to be in the moment and just enjoy something that's very natural. It's not supernatural at all. It's not like magic, which, it isn't like fireworks from the sky, but it was just a moment, right? But yet it was a great moment because we were there together in this time, beautiful weather, these ducks and laughter, right? So being present, back to like slowing down and being present and like appreciating what you have, So your story reminded me of that. Curtis, does our talks about the canyon and the ducks remind you of anything in the last couple of weeks?
I was driving, I was in Asheville, North Carolina on 2 weeks ago or something. And the Blue Ridge Mountains are really, really, really important to me, and really like special and really formative as far as like I went to college in them, and like it kind of like the whole vibe there kind of shaped who I am today, really. And I was, I had gone out for the day on my own. I was in my buddy's car, and I was driving towards the mountains, and it was really fucking cold. It was freezing, but I was in the car, thankfully. And I was like looking off, and like the contrast between like the cloud, if it's dark clouds at the end of the day, you've kind of like got twilight, and you've got like this really stark contrast of clouds and sky.
Yes.
And the clouds were like coming over the mountains, and I was just like taken back, man. I was like, I just really remembered some really grand experiences when I was like in my early 20s and late teens. I went to college when I was 19. So I was there from, 19 to 23 or something, however long college takes. For me, it was 4 years, thankfully.
It was a little longer for me. It was a little longer for me.
I was just super fucking grateful. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I feel amazing. And I'm like, a lot of times I am like by myself, like saying out loud, I'm so grateful for this, I'm so grateful for that, like talking to myself essentially. But it's such it's the vibration that I want to operate in, is gratitude, and presence and love. And because the more I operate on that level and on that vibration, the more people, places, things, energy I bring into my orbit on that same vibration. It's the law of attraction. So I really like to, I've been for months now, essentially been in a constant state of gratitude. My life has been really good. It has its hiccups and has some stuff that I have to work through, and some things that I still have to own, like some character defects and wreckage of my past, and things that I really have to work through. But overall, like, I am in a perpetual state of gratitude lately, and it feels, I mean, it's like I feel fucking high like a lot of the time. I'm like, dude, what is going on? You know, it's hard to contain it.
Hey, Chris, I'm never like that, am I?
I'm just like, man, am I losing my shit? And then I'm like, no, this is great. And it's just, it really has opened so many doors for me lately. And I'm just, gratitude is so important. And, this goes back to the sober living that I lived in. I'm going to have him on the show at some point. His name's Kelly Seidlitz. The sober living that I lived in LA was called Gratitude Recovery. So it was ingrained in my fucking hardwired into my brain.
We know where this is grounded now. Now we know where it's grounded. This is beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
This is beautiful.
He's a real like mentor for me back then, and taught me mindfulness, and taught me to like stay grateful. And he's such a bright light, and so like he's just a great person to be around. And it's really, it all comes back to that. And with gratitude comes presence. And I really, 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 and especially as a father, like being present is so important to me, because I was not present for so long. Like I was there, but dude, I don't fucking remember my kids being young at all. And not in a way that parents are like, oh yeah, I don't remember them because like we were too busy. I don't remember them because I was fucked up, like severely fucked up. And I can't get that time back, but I can show up for them now, and that's what's important. And
you said something really cool just now, and so it made me reach over and grab my phone. So for anybody that gets clean and sober and decides they want to stay that way, I have a recommendation for you. There's a notes section in your phone that's really good for capturing the stuff that comes through your mind, because stuff's going to come through and you're going to go, man, I really wish I could remember what I said or what I did or what I was thinking. And if you don't write it down, it just kind of drifts away. For me, it did anyway, and still does to this day. One of the I don't want to call it a problem. One of the challenges that I still have to this day is I still have gaps in my memory and my ability to remember things. Memorizing things is a real challenge for me. I have to work really, really, really hard at it. So it takes a ton of effort. But if I write it down, I can go back and reflect on it almost any time, which is a really powerful tool to work around the fact that my memory doesn't work exactly as I hope it would, right? And what they say actually is that we have perfect memory, but we have poor recall. So it's the recall part. I did something to the recall part of my brain that it doesn't work exactly like it's supposed to. I can live with that. I have a really, really good life. If that's the worst thing that happened to me that keeps this, then I'm okay with that. My teeth were pretty messed up. I was able to go and see a dentist and get all that stuff fixed, right? So they were able to fix this other thing, maybe doesn't work as well but I found a way to work around that. So part of sobriety as well is finding workarounds. So one of the workarounds is to write stuff down. So one of the things I wrote down, and I just share this very quickly, and this is what we're doing right now. If people are thinking about what are these guys actually talking about, what are they doing? Together, we paint a picture of a future so bright and so exciting, it takes restraint just to sleep. No pushing is required when the vision is so compelling that it launches you out of bed with excitement and anticipation. That's how I felt when I woke up this morning. You don't get to feel any of that when you're waking up hungover. It's just never going to happen for you. You're not going to wake up feeling that way. Now, you could put some stuff into your body that might get you to that state again, right? But it's not going to be sustainable. This is sustainable. This is sustainable. You said something earlier, Curtis, that really, really struck me. And I'd like to go back to it for two reasons. You talked about how there isn't another comeback for you and how it took something really dramatic to demonstrate that to you. Here's how closely paralleled mental illness is and substance abuse or alcoholism or coming back from recovery. When someone has a psychotic break, they're only one break away ever from never being able to come back to reality. And the kind of break that you were talking about from reality that comes from either drug or alcohol induced is that same kind of a break. And literally you could go, like they say, off the deep end, and then you see these guys on the streets that are wandering around, or these girls, unfortunately, women, men, human beings wandering around on the streets, talking to themselves, probably have an underlying mental condition, but maybe not. Maybe they drank enough bad stuff over the years that it did something to their brain that their brain couldn't recover from. My very own brother-in-law, who my sister convinced to take me in, was a functioning alcoholic for pretty much his whole life. Held down a phenomenal job, is retired, and then began the process of slowly drinking himself to death. Literally. And it wasn't till he went to the hospital in liver failure that he woke up to the fact that he had to stop. Because the doctor basically told him, said, if you continue on this path, then you're done. His daughter just recently had their very first grandchild. And now he has a reason to live. And now he has a reason to live clean and sober. And he's so grateful that he didn't kill himself. My sister and I had a candid conversation. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get him to stop. He won't stop. And I said, you know what? I said, all you can do is, you know, for me, I said, all you can do is pray. You can ask, you know, for guidance, and that there'll be some kind of an intervention that will have him wake up. Well, that intervention was his liver quitting, his liver getting so sick that he had to go into the hospital, and then coming out of that, finding a reason to live. So when you shared that and knowing how close you were to not being here, like literally you might have still been here physically, but you would have been here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We couldn't have had a conversation like this. When you can ground yourself that way, or the way that I did, by going and creating a visual image of something that you know you don't want your life to look like, that recall is so powerful that you could literally be in a position where you're ready to slip because you've allowed yourself into that position, and say, you know what? I really need to leave. I really thank all you guys for inviting me here. I've had a great time, but I need to go. Right? Or you could say no and never put yourself in that position, and you have the courage, the strength, and the fortitude to say no because you're grounded in what you know you don't want. So sometimes, like you said, knowing what you don't want is just as important as knowing what you do want. So thank you for that, because that helped ground that even further in my mind. Now I have 3 images I can draw upon. I can draw upon the look of my sister's face, looking at her husband going, I don't understand. I can draw on your story, and I can draw on my own memory. And then I can draw on the joy and gratitude that I see on this man's face who's hosting this for us right now every time he and I talk about gratitude. Now I have 4 images, all different, but all that ground me in what we're doing together to try to make this a little bit better planet for all of us.
I want to step in. Oh, go ahead, Curtis. Go ahead. He was speaking to you, so.
I learned later, after that whole thing went down, like as I'm like in detox, going like entering into this psychosis, and between the time it started and by the time they got me to the hospital, they said that I like took my wallet out, went into the to like the nurse's office or like whatever in the main nurse's part of the detox, and start like dump my wallet out and start like chopping up like imaginary lines of like coke or meth or whatever it was. And they said that I got the pictures of my kids and like put them over to the side. And every time I think about that, I'm just like, so I'm like in there like asking nurses to like do this imaginary coke with me, but at the same time, part of me has the like awareness to like, okay, like remove your children from this situation. And it's just like, what, I don't know how to explain that except for like a power greater than me, like working through me at the time, because I'm like just ready to fucking blow some huge rails, but I want to make sure my kids are safe over here. So
Wow.
Talk about visceral.
Wow. Well, Chris, you were about to say something. I'm like, can't wait. I know you're going to say something really powerful.
I was just going to say, you know, we're sitting here talking, and, you know, the only reason we know each other is obviously our experiences. But, you know, Curtis in his sobriety shared that he was grateful, you know, at 5.5 years in, he just decided publicly on a platform to say, I'm grateful. And, you know, and I found Curtis because I follow a hashtag on Instagram. So because he put out this message into the world, I happened to be scrolling through at that moment. And because of that mechanism in his heart for sharing gratitude, we're connected and we're here, you know, very similar to Bobby and I 5 or 6 years ago being on a platform called Anchor. Yep. And we're grateful for. And somehow through that, because we were sharing that, we met each other. And then here we are together, you know, and it just reminds me so much of, I feel like people can, you know, if we just look at where you're saying the honesty of this is what I'm grateful for, it says so much about who we are. And it allows us to look past, you know, I don't see gratitude as a political stance. I don't see it as a religious stance. I see it as who you are. It's not, it doesn't divide us. It puts us together. It's a connecting force. It's so much stronger than all those other things that push us apart. And, you know, we're three very different people, but we're sitting here together because we're freaking grateful. And I love that so much. And I know we only got a couple minutes left. So go ahead, Bobby.
No, I was going to say, Chris, with what you just said, it transcends all bounds and all beliefs. That's my addition to what you just said. Gratitude transcends all bounds and all beliefs.
Right on. Well, wait, Curtis, we got about a minute here. You got any final thoughts, buddy?
No, just again, like when we do these things, I'm always like, as we enter into it, I'm like, well, how's it going to flow today? Like, how's it going to flow? Or,
you're all up in your head.
You know, and
I am so laughing with you right now, brother. I want you to know, because I did that same thing. Like, how's it going to flow? How's it going to go? We should have a structure. We should have a script. We should have a this or that. No, this was beautiful.
We never have a script, and it always goes really well. And I always feel exponentially better after it. And I'm just like, wow, that's just like, it just speaks to the power of the whole concept of and practice of gratitude. So thank you both.
Yeah, you're welcome, Bobby. Say a few things that you can tell people where they can find you if they'd like to reach out to you.
Yeah, the easiest place to find me is on my website at bobbykountz.com. You can also find me on Twitter, Bobby_Kountz, at Bobby_Kountz. That's the easiest way to kind of see what my work is. Also, you can find me on Medium. I write on Medium. I'm an inspirationalist, so I write a lot of really inspirational articles, mostly because I believe that what you put out into the world comes back to you. And basically what I really believe more than anything is that we are literally a mirror reflecting back into the world what we're doing within ourselves. And getting to the place that I arrived in all of these years that have accumulated, and I want to make this really, really important point, one day at a time. Yes, I have over 30 years. Yes, I will celebrate my 31st year this year, if that's the universe's plan. And I believe it is, because I'm part of that plan. And I work that plan. And I work my program. My recommendation to anyone out there who's really just getting rolling is be very structured in the beginning, and then allow yourself to grow into your own plan that will carry you into long-term sobriety. Then you can have a life outside of sobriety. Your life won't be just focused on sobriety, and you'll have an opportunity to meet other really cool people like Chris Palmore, Curtis, outside of whatever he's doing when he's working with clients in the program, right? So Curtis has a very structured life, I'm sure, in the program when he's doing that. And then he also has a family life, so when you're clean and sober and you've been that way for a while, you could be invited over to Curtis's house, maybe for a barbecue with your family kind of thing. Those are the things that become available to you in long-term sobriety. Maybe those things aren't available in the very beginning, but that also gives you hope. There's a phrase that, where there is no hope, the people will perish. Well, I truly believe that. I believe that if we don't have hope, we will perish. And part of this gratitude process is realizing that every day is a gift, and that if we embrace the day for what it offers us, one day at a time, then we get to experience that gift, and that gift is gratitude.
That's beautiful, man. I think that's a great place to close out here. And I just, just going back to this idea of a gratitude meeting, gratitude is a habit. It's something you have to practice at. It's something you need to bring into your day. And if you can start it by watching a couple other people talk about it, that's great. Or making a list or taking a walk, your day's only be better, and this kind of starts from there. So I thank you guys for allowing me to have this morning gratitude meeting. And I know that I could never have enough of these. And the cool thing is we've captured this, so whenever we want to, we can go back and watch it, which is pretty spectacular. So I want to thank you, Curtis and Bobby, and I'm Chris, and and we're out. Have a wonderful day. Stay